his way. He can make up ground in the bullet. One of the only players on the planet who can do that against Hikaru Nakamura. But Hikaru is just locked in. He has yet to lose a game to Magnus Carlsen in the year 2022. This year's almost over. If he somehow doesn't lose the STC match and doesn't play him in the World Rapid Blitz, that's it. He will go a full year without losing to Magnus Carlsen just by playing many games. That would be the biggest accomplishment perhaps of his entire career.
Let's see what changes Magnus Carlsen is going to make, both in terms of his opening play and in terms of his match strategy. There's a change. A2, A3 on move 3. Taking a page out of Hikaru's book a little bit, isn't he?
I thought you were saying there's a change because Magnus' undershirt is gone.
Oh,
now,
God.
His attire has changed. He's nothing going right for him thus far. He just, I'm bringing a feature chat. What do you want?
That's beyond, no, it's beyond my intellectual pay grade. I was going to compliment you. Give me a chance to finish. I was going to say that is, beyond the kind of humor that I'm capable of.
You know me, I'm nervous. I'm always worried that you're going to come out swinging at me, just like Hikaru is coming out swinging at Magnus Carlsen. But right now, Donnie, with this early A3, right with this double G, Black Castle's kingside right now, watch out. First, Hikaru plays H6. He says, what are you going to do with your king? If you commit your king to the kingside, I will very much do the same. So Hikaru's like a little bit of a waiting game.
Yeah, and of course, you can't castle queenside anymore. You've already moved the rook. He does castle kingside, and Magnus saying, yeah, I've got some visual damage on the kingside, but that pawn on G3 could also potentially serve as an anchor point for a knight that jumps into H4. Do you see this move sometimes? We have a trade on E4, and is Hikaru contemplating he takes E4 to push the knight off of F3?
Pretty risky decision because you don't want to get caught with isolated pawns, or double pawns, I should say, in this position, but he goes for it. And now a big choice for Magnus to drop his knight to D2. So C5, knight C4, knight D6 for white. But as you're indicating, black is fighting for that very same pawn push to try to chisel at white's pawn on D4.
And there is a second pawn push, E6, E5, which has the benefit of undoubling black's pawns. But you're absolutely right. Hikaru doesn't mind these double pawns. Both of them are serving a purpose. The E6 pawn is protecting the bishop, which is protecting E4. This is like one defensive unit. And Magnus is driving his queen up to B3, forcing a little weakness and making space for his rook to enter the party.
Here might come knight B1, knight C3, improving the knight, or it goes queen C3, you want B4. Perhaps white is essentially up a pawn in many ways because black has these double E pawns. So let's slice the board in half. No, I'd love to do that. If we look at the A through the D file, white has 4 pawns, black only has 3. So if you can force that pawn off of C5, Danya, like let's say C takes B4, A takes B4, we have a passed pawn ready to roam.
Hikaru is going to keep this pawn on C5 as long as it is counterplay. Magnus saying, no such luck. I'm not engaging at all. Maybe rook d1 can be tried, but the problem is that even if the rooks are off the board, that might actually help white, because the knight is more than capable of seeing the pawn through to promotion. Hikaru has to keep the pieces on the board, and he does, and queen a5 here is still possible.
Goes queen a4, doesn't want to trade the queens just yet, because the queens are terrible blockading pieces.
Yeah.
Knight c5, knight a6 is the threat. Knight c5 now drops the pawn on c6. You can't get away with that. So I think maybe bring the knight back to d2 and go after the e4 pawn.
But maybe c6 was a little bit hasty. It was such a tempting move. But Hikaru is pretty close to going bishop e6, d5, and we know what he's capable of in these types of positions. I'm more worried about his clock, the combination of the passed pawn and the 20 seconds on his clock. If Magnus doesn't win this, Robert, if Magnus doesn't win this...
I think rook c5, that way your pawn at c6 is defended, you stop knight d5, you play knight c4 next. I think it's a really strong move, and that way your passed pawn is safe and sound.
You can also play queen a5 to immobilize black's rooks, but whatever you do, don't start with knight c4 and blunder the pawn on c6.
And look at how much time Magnus has. He's just playing much quicker. Now, knight g4 for black, if you get your queen over to h5, you'll deliver a checkmate. The problem is the queen on c7 is doing an important job. It's blockading the passed pawn.
What are you talking about, Robert? Just queen c7 to h5. It's not that complicated.
It looks a little complicated, but e5 is in trouble. Hikaru in trouble with the clock.
And he's made both of our moves, queen a5 and then rook c5, but he needs that final push to get the queen off of c7 and get the pawn through.
Yes, so g6 play here. What's happening? Can I beat rook c5? You can take e5, but c6 pawn then gets in trouble.
Yeah, Magnus taking his time. He's now below a minute. And we know what step one is for Hikaru. Get Magnus under 30 seconds. And no such luck. He's playing so confidently as he massages black's weaknesses. But here comes Hikaru's rook. It's not over yet.
It isn't, because queen e5, you swap, because rook e5, you trade queen with rook c1 at the end. Now, c7, queen e1, okay.
Oh, well, rook f1 and queen e1 is almost made. There is queen e1, though. I think he could just push.
So wait,
no.
c7, queen e1.
What? Queen c4?
I love that move. Love the move rook b5.
Oh, the only move to win, apparently, according to the engine.
And Hikaru's just going to lose on time. And the reason why rook b5